All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the world famous 83 to Infinity podcast where we talk Sixers. Nothing but Sixers. NBA basketball and how it pertains to the Sixers. That would be the Sixers who were victorious in the first round of the NBA playoffs.
Were they?
There are a lot. Yeah, they were. I mean, in the first
carry
round.
on. I just had to throw that out there. Like, were they really victorious?
Did they win?
We'll come back to that.
They won. So to me, that is victor. That's how you become victorious. You declare yourself victorious by winning. And that is what the Philadelphia 76ers did. They handled the Brooklyn Nets without Joel Embiid in Brooklyn, on the road in Brooklyn in a closeout game. What was the final score? Whatever the Sixers had to whatever the Nets had. That's all that matters. The Nets lost. The Nets, who
96 to 88.
Nets, after being swept in 4 games by the Sixers, were also 0-4 against the Sixers in a regular season.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I understand I know you don't put a lot of stock in that because it was a different Nets team throughout the season. You know, there were the KD Nets, there were the Kyrie Nets, there were the KD and Kyrie Nets, there were the no KD and Kyrie Nets. Ben Simmons played a couple of games here and there. Did Ben Simmons play any of those games against the Sixers?
No, I don't think so.
But nonetheless, I still find it hard to believe that one team can lose to another team 8 times in one season and not beat them one single game, not win one single game. That's crazy to me. I just, that is wild. But nonetheless, Sixers are moving on. Your initial thoughts on this series, this first round series?
My initial thoughts?
Yes.
As now that the series is over, we've seen how it played out in its entirety, first round.
Mm-hmm.
You call it a victory. I say not so much.
How can it not be a victory? I'm just asking.
Here's why. I'm explaining it to you.
Okay.
Because we've talked several times. At no point did I have any thoughts that Brooklyn was even a threat to win this series.
Okay.
My concern, we're making sure you're prepared for the second round.
Mm-hmm.
And for the second round, our big man starting that series coming off a sprained knee.
Yeah.
If he's able to go at the beginning of the series. So, Embiid injury is why I say, did we really win? Like, is it really a victory? Like, yeah, you got past the Nets, but you were always going to get past the Nets. Mm-hmm. What you really wanted to do was get past the Nets healthy.
And they did not do that. You were right. Let's bring in a guest for some extra commentary. He joined us.
He's not a guest no more.
Yeah, pretty much. He
one of us.
He is. Now, real talk. I have a neighbor. I have a friend of our family. Mm-hmm. Been a long time friend. And my dad are pretty much best friends now. This man has been coming over our house now for like 30-something years. Man has never knocked. He just comes right into the door. He knows which door is open. He walks right in. And when you come into the house and you see him sitting on the couch, you're not surprised. You're not shocked. You're not mad. He's there. And that's who Jovan Alford is.
Exactly. He's family.
That's all he is. He is family. He knows he has an open invitation. And to be honest, although this is Jonesy and Brown, and this is, just another, I guess variation of all the podcasts I ever did. He was the co-host of the Best in the World Sports Report for a long time. And we never really just ended the Best in the World Sports Report. So he's still like a co-host. Like if he wanted to make this, if we us and said, "Hey man, I just want this to be Jonesy, Brown, and Alford," like would we tell him no?
No.
No, we just kick up the money, go to the graphics guy and have him add his name to add his name to the logo, and then it would just be Jonesy Brown and Alford. We had to change all the social media, change the website and everything, and he did it all. Jovan Alford, welcome to the show. Sixers have now beaten the Nets 4-0. Uh, the Embiid news is a bummer, but let's start with positives. What positives do you take from this first round series?
Well, again, always appreciate y'all having me on. Like you said, I'm not no special guest or anything. Friend of a friend.
You are
family
special.
friend.
You're very special. You just ain't no guest. You know,
Exactly. There
it
you
is.
go. There you go. There you go. Like first time, long time. But
Exactly.
that game, yeah. I mean, positive. I think the first positive, and I think we talked about this, last week, right? Was Tobias Harris in the way that he played throughout this series, because we saw, like we talked about last week, right? Playoff Tobias showed up, but there was some period, especially in that Miami series, when Mike mentioned when Embiid came back, he kind of floated back into like, I'm going to let the big man just do what he do, and I'll play my role. Like, no, he kept his momentum and kept that same energy from game one and carried to game four. I mean, I would be interested to see when's the last time he had a streak where he had like 20-point games in a row. Like that's something that we haven't seen him unheard of from him. And then even just on the boards, his work on the board, and I think the Sixers' work on the boards in general played a huge, factor into this game.
15 boards for Paul Reed.
Yeah, I mean, see what happens when you play Paul Reed, Doc Rivers, and not putting him into the fire last year when he didn't really play. Now you see what happens when you play him and you start to reap those benefits. So I think them cleaning the glass like they did, and even I think we saw a little bit something out of this team when they were not playing their best in game 3, and even playing in game 4, they weren't playing their best, right? Sixers teams in the past would have been like, "That's what it is," like. We might not
call
win
it a day. We'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah. We'll pack it up. We'll finish this in game 5, like almost how they did the Raptors series. They were up 3-0, couldn't get it done. All right, we'll push it and see what happens. No, they did not mess around. They fought through it. Maxey in game 4 was, with some buckets, Melton with 15, 14 points in the fourth quarter. He's been a huge addition to this team. So there's a lot of positives, right? Outside of the injury, you got to be impressed with them taking care of business against a team that they should have, dominated.
Now, it's still a playoff team. They made their way into the playoffs. But how bad of a team is Brooklyn? Is this really just beating up on a bad team? Or, like, was this a case of the Sixers playing a good enough brand of basketball to win this series, or was this just beating up on some suckers?
I'm not going to say they're bad, right? Because they do have pieces. Is again, right? We're only getting like a 20 plus game sample size of what they are, because this team has gone through like multiple iterations in like one season. It's like Simmons, KD, Kyrie, then Simmons is out the picture. Now it's, KD, Kyrie, and then KD moves on, Kyrie moves on, and now you're ushering in, about that short period of like Cam Thomas leading the charge, and then it went to Bridges, Johnson, Dinwiddie. So I think we've seen different iterations. They just so happenly, the bottom of the East just wasn't that good this year. So they had such a big lead where they could just like, we don't have to play our best basketball in the second half. We can kind of just at least play 500 and we'll carry it. But they do have some things where they gotta shore up. I think you gotta, if you're Brooklyn, you got something in Bridges. You might want to upgrade that point guard spot. Just don't know if Dinwiddie's going to be that guy for them long term in that front court. No disrespect to Nick Claxton, but they need something else there, because he showed up the last 2. He showed up, obviously Embiid, and even in game 3, but other 2 games was non-existent. You can't have that in today's game. You need something else out of your center. And then they have bench pieces. That's one thing I do say. They have bench pieces. They just don't know how to use them the correct way.
Speaking of bench pieces, either of you know what happened to Seth Curry this series? He was a guy who I actually thought could cause some trouble for the Sixers, because they struggle to guard the perimeter, and his shooting, we know what his shooting can do.
Mm-hmm.
So like those stretches where you weren't getting what you wanted out of Johnson or Bridges, like when they had some quiet stretches, I thought those would have been times to get Curry in the game, and he was, at least to me, noticeably absent from the rotation.
21 and a half minutes, 6 points in the closeout game.
That's ridiculous for a player of his caliber. Like
you have his shooting numbers in front of you.
Let's see, 3 of 6. No 3 points made. No, 3 of 6 from the field. 0 for 3 from 3.
Okay, so shot 50%, but he was a little off from the outside. But he's a Curry.
Yeah, right.
You gonna tell me he's done shooting because he missed 3?
Mm-hmm.
No. Like if Draymond Green's 0 for 3 in a game, you say Draymond stop shooting.
Stop shooting. Yeah.
Right.
If Seth Curry is 0 for 3 in a game, all right,
You
Seth,
tell him
we'll
shoot
get you
more.
some more
Yeah.
shot. Keep shooting.
You good. You nice. Keep going. Yeah, keep shooting.
I think Jock Vaughn's rotations in game 4 were kind of weird too, right? Because we saw, I don't think Seth played a little bit, but then in game 3, he really wasn't existent. He didn't really see a lot of playing time. He threw Cam Thomas out there to try to get something going. It didn't work. I mean, we saw Joe Harris sprinkled in, I think, Patty Mills, even though poor Patty was just getting sliced and diced out there on the floor. I felt bad for him, but so many different rotations where guys didn't really, I think, know what their role was. Like, and I felt like Curry played good in that game 1. Like, he was getting his shots and, coming off the screens and, lining shots up. I would think if you're Jock Vaughn, like, that's your 6th man that you call off the bench immediately to, like,
did Curry even get in the game?
Minutes.
Did Curry even get in the game 3?
What I will say, yeah, he played a little bit. But what I was going to say real quick is that as we're talking about this, it's hitting me the roster construction of the Brooklyn Nets after all these moves they made during the year. 85% of their roster is perimeter guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, I'm realizing not only do they not have the high-end talent in the front court, they just lack bodies in the front court.
Yep.
So yeah, as we talk about it, and if you think about Jock Vaughn's unusual rotations, that may have been a function of being strapped personnel-wise. Your options are what they are at that point. Like, yeah, I need to go to my backup 4, but I don't have one.
Right. Royce O'Neal is your backup 4.
Right.
And so, and because of that, Sixers were able to capitalize. You see, you talk about what playoff Toby was able to do. You saw what you saw what Joel was able to do while not necessarily putting up a lot of points. He commanded that double team. And when you talk about perimeter players, the Sixers perimeter players played well this series. They were hitting jump shots. You talk about PJ Tucker in the corner. James Harden was hitting jumpers. Might not have hit too many layups.
Can we talk about that real quick?
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. But I guess the point is, when you look at, we're talking about the shortcomings of Brooklyn, but let's also speak to what the Sixers had and how the Sixers were made up, so they were able to capitalize on said shortcomings.
But again, because of Brooklyn's shortcomings, I do not and the Sixers played well, but I don't want to make it seem like they just beat up on the 93 Bulls or something. Like,
that is true. Understood.
Like, there were some things left to be desired in the Sixer performance. And one that was very obvious, JB, I was sitting next to you watching the game yesterday, and I'm looking at you like, Harden's legs are dead. Like, he can get by somebody, but once he gets into the paint, he has absolutely no lift to finish. And so the layups get harder if he can get it up at all without getting it sent back at him.
Yep.
Like, that's going to be problematic the further you get into the playoffs.
We were watching the game and we're sitting there and like the jumper was still wet. Jumper was still working. He was still getting people to bite on moves. He was still crossing people up. He was able to get to the basket. He was able to make moves with a reasonable amount of speed. But once he got to the basket,
No lift.
Nope.
Yeah, it wasn't good. I made a post on Facebook. I'm like, man, me and James Harden finish at the rim the exact same way. You know, everything before he gets to the rim, he looks like James Harden, superstar, future, you know, former MVP, future Hall of Famer, you know, everything that he is. Then he get to the rim and yeah, it wasn't good business, man. And I think, unfortunately, that's something that's going to have to be taken into consideration as you decide what you're going to do with James Harden in the future. However, right now he's what we got.
He's your starting point guard.
He's your starting point guard. He's who we got. And
yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jovan.
No, I was gonna say, and I think that was so telling, right? Because he seemed fresh in game one, and then it just like consistently like went down game after game after game. And when you're talking about a team like the Celtics, right, you can't have those downward trends. You know, you play well in game one, right? We hope he does, right? Because then it's like, oh man, Sixers might actually still home court if Boston makes it, right? Still home court, and you got a chance, but you can't have them go, you know, 4 for 15. You know, later in the series, because Boston actually has guards that can, you know, shoot a little bit. Derek White and Brogdon and even Jaylen Brown. So yeah, you got to finish those layups.
They have guards that are high level defenders that will make him work and burn out those legs, and then they'll make him work on the defensive end. Harden's he's going to need his legs this series.
He's going to need his legs this series. So that's fans rooting on Atlanta to try and somehow
extend this series.
This series.
Yeah, the best thing that can happen to Philly is if Atlanta can get 6 games out of this.
Yeah. We'll be pulling for them.
I'm not going to go too far and say 7 because that's just
you know. No, I'm honestly, I'm with you. Whatever, you know, would love at least one more game. Would be ecstatic they win 2 more games, but one, you know. Let me start. Let me not be greedy, you know. But teams winning got goodness from Tobias Harris, some good contributions from role players. Now, last time the 3 of us talked, you know, I talked about, can your role players do it on the road? You know, we're talking about the first 2 games. Yeah, you come out, you play well at home. You're supposed to. Role players are supposed to play well at home. Can they do it on the road? But then what do you see? You see Tyrese Maxey, you know, showing up in game 3. Game 4, started out slow, but still hit some shots towards the end. Heated up he heated up towards the end, and I have liked what I have seen from him. We're kind of waiting to see the type of player he is. You know, he might never be your superstar, but I think a phrase that you used yesterday, Jonesy, when we were watching the game is, you know, that high level role player.
Yep.
You know, and I think he's ascended to that role. Has he grasped, in your opinion, from what you have seen in this series, has he grasped that brass ring?
For me, absolutely. Like I'm hesitant. Like I'm not as free with the word superstar as a lot of other people. For me, a superstar, I need you to be effective on both ends of the court. Number one, I need you to be able to make other people around you better. Like there are extra things than just being able to go score points to make you a superstar.
Agreed.
And so with Maxey's defensive limitations, not really a point guard, a facilitator that, you know, runs the offense, that I don't want to say he doesn't make people better, but his game is to go get buckets. Like so in the grand scheme of things, that's a role. And it's not like he's the guy you got just count to go give you whatever you need. You need buckets from Maxey. That's his role. And he's very, very good at that role.
He'll get you buckets. You saw that, and it was like he's the kind of player that for people who have been watching the Sixers for years, that you've asked them to go get. They needed somebody who can hit that run stopping shot. whether it be a jumper, whether it be getting to the basket, drawing fouls. That's what he is. That's what he can get. You saw that in game 3. Harden's ejected. Embiid is limping around. You needed somebody to take over that game, and down the stretch, that's what he did.
I mean, if you think about it, since the Sixers began the so-called process, they've literally only had 3 players that entire time. What, 8, 9, almost 10 years now, where, like, I mean this literally, 3 players who've been able to create their own shot on the perimeter.
Yep.
Just here for all of 2 months, and then now Harden, Maxey. You can't name another guard they had who could create his own. Yes, who could shoot the jump shot. Those were guys like Danny Green or JJ Redick, Seth Curry, who moved without the ball, catching, coming off screen. But what we've lacked is what Tyrese into game 3. A guy who can have the ball in his hands, say, get out my way, I'm gonna create this shot, and it's gonna be a good shot, and I'm gonna seal the game.
And I'm gonna make the shot.
On the Maxey offense. That's the thing. It's Maxey offensively has the ability to grow into that scoring type closer role. Whether or not he'll become the defensive player you need him to be to round out his game is yet to be
determined. Yeah.
He can absolutely play that offensive closer role because he's able to, like Jimmy Butler was here, he was able to create his own shot.
Create his own shot. Yep.
We haven't had it since.
It's painful.
Ben Simmons, he wasn't in shooting at all.
No.
TJ McConnell, like these are guys we're talking about over the years. Isaiah Cannon. Your Ish Smiths.
Wow. Don't you dare talk about Tony Roten.
Like, these are the
Tony Roten,
players. Tony Roten. There have been others. Matisse Thybulle. Like these have all been the perimeter guys, and so Embiid has never really had that 1 year the top of Jimmy Butler team, and you see how he and Jimmy years after that.
Yeah.
After
you're right.
Because being the value of having a guy that create that space for. So that's just what I'm saying. Like Maxey's role is 100% essential for what to do. Like need Harden to facilitate.
Yep.
Let's get your body involved. But you need Maxey to be that scoring perimeter guy. Like he can close out with making shots for you.
Definitely. And I guess, especially now when you see Joel Embiid being once again hampered by injury. And it's like, how much of this, from what you've seen, like how much of this for fans is like, oh my God, here we go again.
That was all the Twitter.
We're going into the second round with Embiid being beat
with
up.
Injured
and
Embiid.
Now it's not even like with an injured Embiid. And Jonesy, you and I talked about this with AG a couple of weeks ago. And we were saying for Doc to save his job, we needed him to go out and win in the second round. Despite agreeing that Boston might be a better built team. Acknowledging the fact that they're going on the road, they don't have home court advantage. So you need Doc in order to save his job to beat a better team on the road. And now, once again, Joel Embiid is hurt. And there's a question mark about how much you can really depend on James Harden. But does does this change anything? Are you still on this? You still feel the same way?
And we talked about this with AG. It's, the way it's looking, it's second. All the excuses are out the door this year. You can say what you want, but if you don't get out the second round, people's seats are going to be on fire. They're hot now.
Yeah.
You'll see the flames bursting out if they don't get out the second round.
Jovan, I wanted to get your thought on that. Where are you with Doc Rivers now? What do you putting injury and status aside, what did you need to see from Doc Rivers to say next season Doc can still coach this team?
I'm on the same accord with y'all, right? I think you got to get to the conference finals. Like this team and just Doc Rivers in general, they've just not have getting it done in the second round for various of myriad reasons, right? And granted, now Embiid's hurt again, which is again not ideal because you thought this year was different. Like, all right, he stayed healthy through most of the regular season, so he's gonna go into the playoffs and you get the sweep. He's gonna be healthy. Then you go into Boston, you got a chance of being healthy. Now he's a little bit banged up, but I think again that doesn't change the fact that this guy's supposed to be a top 15 coach all time. Like you got to do it right. And I think what helps him this time around is that I think this team just has a different mindset and mentality where they, I think they for weirdly enough, I think we saw this even in this series and even throughout the regular season. This team, like they thrive in crunch time. Like they don't fold in like how we saw past Sixers teams like get crunch time. I don't know, man. I don't know if I want such and such taking the shot, right? We've seen in this series, right? Maxey step up, Melton coming up, late stretches in the fourth. I mean, PJ Tucker, even though he doesn't give you anything offensively, right? Just doing those little things.
But he'll hit a shot from time to time, though.
Yeah, he will. And I think
but he'll make the hustle play, set the screen, get the rebound, like all the little, all the winning plays.
What you need.
Loose balls on
exactly what you need.
Loose balls on the floor, all that. Yeah, no, we saw it, and we'll need it. We'll definitely need it in the next round. One more thing I wanted to ask you guys before we leave this net series alone. Talk to you guys about I guess the sports talk chatter after Game 3 about Joel Embiid's his conduct, demeanor, whatever. How much do you put into that? How much of that is something that you should really pay attention to, and how much of that is just really sports talk fodder? Because you need to make a 3-0 series seem interesting.
I mean, depending on the station, right? We saw it coming from WIP. And
Well, of course it's not going to come from the flagship station.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Yeah. But I mean, they might talk slick here and there, but no, I mean, where there's some should he been ejected? Yeah, you can really make a strong case. Like, yo, man, should have been. You might have should have been out the door, which probably which costed your man getting kicked out over nothing.
Look, man, as you can see, Harden needed the break probably more than Embiid
right. He needed the break. So I mean, when you put it, I saw the tweet. They painted it like that and say he's like mentally weak and stuff like that. Like I can't go there with him with that because everybody has a bad game, right? But it's how you push through. He pushed through it, and like you said, to create this narrative when your team is up 3-0, it's just weird, right? We should be the conversation should have not been about, oh man, Embiid, is he mentally weak? Is he physically weak? The conversation should be, hey, Tyrese Maxey, 33 points, really, got this team, got the Nets on the brink of elimination. Melton, Paul Reed, PJ Tucker, even though he's missing threes, he's still doing the little things, not, trying to tear down Embiid, just because you want to get some, ratings on your morning show because you're trying to replace somebody. So
I will say this, though. Not that I agree with anyone who's casting Embiid in that light, but over the course of his career, we've seen Embiid have moments where he showed bad body language.
Yeah.
And somewhat seemed like he was moping, for better or for worse. There are times where we've seen him mope a little bit on the sideline. And the way Game 3 was going, Harden ejection, Embiid's knee sprain, it would not be a stretch with the sprained knee for Embiid to have a moment where he's like, man, really again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anybody's ever sprained their knee, you feel something's wrong immediately. So for the man to react as though, man, not again, and have a moment where you might see him not looking excited, that's human.
That's being human. Yeah.
He still competed hard. He still went out there, gave you what you needed, made a game-saving block and all.
Yes.
But and that's the part that impressed me and why I don't agree with him saying like it was bad. But like we've seen him mope in the what I think the dude faced the reality and made himself again.
Yeah, and I guess it was not just the criticism of and it's not just the criticism of the Sixers that bothered me. It was the words that were used. And you know, look, man, we're a small time podcast. I'll put his name out there. Joe DeCamera called him a disgrace.
Yeah.
A disgrace. I'm like, dude, you're pushing it now. Like now you're going too far. A disgrace? No. I find it hard to believe that in that game where he still put up 14 points, 10 rebounds, had the game-saving block. This man is still the league MVP. A disgrace? That's you're doing too much, bruh.
Yeah, if I see a guy
Joe DeCamera had to get the sit your ass down award for that day, man. Like, Joe, sit your ass down, bro. A disgrace. And it was funny. I saw, you know, there were people who were kind of criticizing that line of criticism. Saying, you know, like saying, hey, you know what, this might be going a little bit too far. And the same way, you know, we, you know, the three of us and the people that we rock with, the people that we're cool with, will kind of circle the wagons when somebody tries to come at them. You know, WIP, they're the same way. They'll circle the wagons for each other. Somebody want to come at Joe DeCamera, there'll be somebody else, you know, whether it be an intern or a producer or you know, one of the 10,000 weekend people, you know, they'll jump in and that's what and he saw that happening. And it was like they're trying to double down on this. And I'm like, look, I'm sorry. I watched that game. Yeah, and to Jonesy, to your point, it's like here's a man who does put forth a lot of effort.
Yep.
And although has had injury history, to find yourself possibly in that place again can be a little bit, you know, disappointing,
a little
disheartening or whatever. But he still, you know, he didn't mail it in.
He kept competing.
If
he'd have had that moment and then just moped up and down the court for the rest of the game without giving full effort, then we can take that reproach. But the man still competed.
Yeah, definitely.
If your leg is 50% and you give me that full 50%, fine.
Right.
I can't say anything bad about you.
And especially, and when you look at, and I thought also, when you look at what seemed to be the game plan of the Brooklyn Nets, where it was like, I felt like, you know, say
Make
what you
everyone
want
else
about,
beat you.
Yes. Say what you want about Jovan, say what you want about the Brooklyn Nets, but I felt like their game plan was, hey, we can't beat these guys straight up, so we got to beat these guys straight up. We got to beat on these guys straight up. We got to see if we can.
Embiid.
Yeah, specifically Embiid, and we got to see if we can goat him into making a mistake. You know, I'm not going to, you know, I'm not trying to excuse, you know, Joel Embiid kicking that man where he kicked him. But let's not forget that after that play, Nick Claxton knew what he was doing when he stepped over Embiid like that. That wasn't him just trying. That wasn't him just trying to get back down the floor to play defense. He knew what he was doing. He knew what he was trying to do.
I gotta call a timeout here because we're Philly fans.
Yeah,
we celebrate AI stepping over people.
Yeah. No, I understand.
Hold on. Let me finish.
Yeah.
If you remember a few years ago, 2016 NBA Finals, Warriors were up 3-1. LeBron stepped over Draymond. What happened to Draymond? He got kicked out.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain things you got to keep your composure.
No.
Hold on. I'm not, because the thing is, it's not that, like, yeah, getting stepped over, you feel a certain, but if you're on the court, you can't respond the way Embiid did, period.
Yeah. No,
I'm not going to put any kind of a sugarcoating on that one.
I'm not disagreeing with that point. I am not disagreeing with that point. I'm just saying that yes, I believe that there is a space where you can say, yes, Embiid has to be smarter than that. Embiid has to be smarter than that. But nonetheless, the game plan was the hope that he wasn't smarter than that. That's what he did was what they were hoping he would do, in the hopes that it would get him put out of the game and take him out of the game. So all I'm saying, I am not excusing Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid needs to be smarter than that. At this point in time, now Joel Embiid should be expecting that.
Right.
But however, all I'm saying is that was the game plan. That was their game plan, and they came up with that game plan because they know that they can't beat the Brooklyn Nets knew they couldn't beat the Philadelphia 76ers.
And he also
no argument. That's the game plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Go ahead.
And Embiid just can't fall into that trap. To your point, Embiid can't fall for that.
Yeah, and for me, I was just going to add on, right? There's going to be a heated moment. If they see the Celtics, there's going to be a moment of tension and heat, and he's going like we all say, he's going to have to weigh the pros and cons in that moment. Like
Joel Embiid and Marcus Smart will get into it at some point in time during this, probably during game one. That is going to happen. We know it, they know it. And Joel Embiid has to be smarter than that. No double technicals, nothing like that. Because bottom line is, Boston Celtics can win without Marcus Smart. The Sixers cannot win without Joel Embiid.
Yep.
All right. Exactly. And that's why I'm so stressing Embiid keeping his composure.
Yes. All right, real quick before I let you guys go, it was good Sixers talk today, but I wanted to ask a question outside of Sixers Nets real quick. I wanted to ask an NBA question.
Okay.
Are you ready? This is my question. Who the hell is Dylan Brooks? Let me explain my question. I know who he is. I know who he plays for. But like when you talk about NBA players and who they are, at some point in time, I feel like there should be an NBA game and a storyline or something that goes along with that player. Mm-hmm. Like you can like or dislike LeBron, but you can point out, like, okay, I remember when LeBron did this in the game. I remember when he did that in the game. You know, there are countless times about that, like Jordan, Kobe, and sometimes, and it's not always just the superstars.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can sit there and say, I remember when Tim Perry dropped 30 points for the Sixers when, Willie Bird.
I remember when Dana Barros went for 50.
Dana Barros went for 50. Here another example, and it doesn't always have to be points. People can say, "Hey, man, you remember when Steph Curry was chasing the threes record, and they played the Sixers on nationwide TV, and they put Matisse Thybulle on him that whole game, and frustrated him that whole game."
JB, I'm gonna show my age, but you remember when Scott Skiles had 30 assists?
30, exactly. My point is, give me a story like that on Dylan Brooks. Tell me, give me a Dylan Brooks story. Give me a Dylan Brooks NBA game story.
I got a Dylan Brooks story for you. Because there was this one time.
You wanted to fight Shannon Sharp?
No, I got the story for you. Hold on. Because there was this one time, I think you'll remember this one, where he ran off his mouth to LeBron and then got embarrassed the next game. That's the Dylan Brooks story I got for you.
I don't get.
I don't got any other ones.
Exactly, and that's my point. That is my point. There's no Dylan. There's no Dylan Brooks NBA stories. Who is he? He's nobody. He's a guy.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's not like we're calling him a bum or saying he doesn't deserve to be in the league. It's just there's a big gap between just some guy in the league and LeBron.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you don't want to give LeBron extra motivation right now. That's a bad idea.
First of all, you don't want to be the guy. You don't want to be the guy that motivated the leader of the 7th seed to beat your 2 seed. You're Memphis and you're in the 2 seed. You go home in the first round. And it's not going to just be, oh, that was because it was LeBron. It was because a guy who acts like he is a star on that team. Not the star. We know who the star is on that team. But he acts like he's a star on that team, a contributor. And I don't remember ever seeing him really contribute. And it's like you see that, and maybe maybe Memphis fans can point me into something. They can say, hey, he had such and such game against such and such or whatever. But it's still, I don't know him. I don't know any Dylan Brooks moments. Who's he? I just don't get it. I'm tired of this guy. All his highlights are whatever he shows up to the game in.
Yep.
And whatever he says. Yeah. That's not cool, man. It's one. It was one thing when it was Russell Westbrook. But you could say, hey, man, Russell Westbrook wears some crazy stuff to the games and then give you a triple-double. Say what you want about that triple-double, but it's still a triple-double. This is not.
It was probably a 30-point triple-double. Like, efficient or not, help the team win or not, he's going to give you a 30-point triple-double.
Russell Westbrook,
there's something there to talk about.
Russell Westbrook averaged a triple-double in his career twice. We were talking about how long it had happened since the Big O did it. He comes and does it twice.
Mm-hmm.
He can wear whatever he wants to the room. He can wear whatever he wants to the game. His resume speaks for itself. Yes. At some point in time, if you're an NBA player and you're going to talk that much, your resume needs to say something other than he talks and he wears funny clothes.
I mean, his team played better without him last night, too.
That's not good.
Just saying.
That's not good.
Team look much better without him.
That's not good. That's not good. And once the word gets out on that, you're out the league pretty soon. His league, at some point in time, Memphis is going to want to, cut bait with him. Let him go. And whatever team he goes to next, they're going to have a shorter leash than Memphis did.
Mm-hmm.
And sooner or later, he'll be right there. He'll be right there next
to put. But let's make this a lot more simple. Like, there's all these things around it, but what we're seeing is why young teams don't win NBA championships. Yeah. That's what we're seeing.
Mm-hmm. Good point. All right, man. It was good talking. Always good to talk some basketball on a Sunday afternoon with you two gentlemen, man.
Same, as always.
Exactly. All right. Real quick, Jovan, what you working on for this week? What you got cooking?
I don't even know. It's a good question. we got draft coming up. NFL draft is coming up this week. So me and Harrison will probably do something, maybe do a pod or something on the website. So be on the lookout for that. Pretty much that's about it. Draft and the Phillies are still going on, so we got that.
Yeah. The game's well. Look, I'm sitting there. I got the game on behind me, so I can't see it. But it looks like the game is over, and they're interviewing a Philly. So I'm going to assume that they won.
Yes, they did.
Okay.
9-3.
9. Oh, okay, nice, nice. There you go. All right, it's a good weekend. Philly. Let's see.
3. They
Take
won
three-
Friday
three-
and yesterday.
Yep. Well, yeah. They 3 out of 4 from the Rockies after getting blanked. You know, hey, it's all right. We'll take that. Sixers win this series, and the Eagles are about to trade for Derrick Henry. No, I'm just joking.
So,
there
real
will be
quick, I know we're all Sixers, and we'll get into this later, but there's some smoke around this Eagles and a running back. There's Derrick Henry talk. Bijan says he's only visited 2 teams, the Eagles and the Buccaneers. So they're connecting the Eagles to a lot of running backs. But we'll get to that later this week.
Eagles running back room is going to have about 17 people in it to start the season. and the problem is they're all going to be good. So what can you do? We'll talk about all that this week. Jovan, thank you, my brother. Appreciate you, man.
No problem.
All right. Peace, brother. All right. Once again, make sure you check us out. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Jonesy and Brown or at BITW Sports. You can download this podcast wherever you get your favorite podcast from. Just go to BITW Sports. That is Mike Jones. I am John Brown. This has been the 83 to Infinity podcast. Go Sixers whenever the Sixers play again. And hopefully it won't be for like another week or so.
Yeah.
Go Hawks. Go Hawks, yes. Let's go Atlanta. Let's go for a special shout out to Mike Jones' favorite player in the NBA right now, Trae Young. I'm gonna get you that Trae Young jersey as soon as
I'm rocking it this week only.
Okay, definitely.
This week only.
Definitely. Your favorite player, Trae Young. And we'll talk about all that later on this week. Peace, y'all.